Hello everyone, and welcome to the newest installment of our Orizon series, brought to you by D&D Universe. I am your incredible host, or semi-incredible host, let's be honest, mediocre host, Aries or Doma on several social media sites, and I am obviously joined by my wonderful cast of the Arisen crew. Everybody go ahead and say hello for all the lovely people listening out there.
Hello.
Howdy, howdy.
Very good. Moving on to a very quick recap about what happened last time. Once again, we apologize for the unfortunate circumstances that have prolonged our most recent episode of Arisen. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into what happened last time on Arisen D&D. Our heroes, after being separated due to an incursion within the kingdom capital of Irongrove, hidden in the valley in the jungles of southern Amali, the young prince and princess, Raldir Silverleaf and his sister, were taken via some very powerful and magical infiltrators known as only the Phoenixes, given to them as their outward appearance in their method of escape. After apprehending the young royalty, our motley crew of heroes began to search with the aid of a friend introduced to them by the captain of the guard, Twergeth, as he was later revealed to be named, or Twig, as he is affectionately referred to. After going and searching around the nearby area for any clues, eventually, not much was found. After returning, some modifications were set into the works on Grafford's ship after its recovery via the use of some very powerful druids and their leader of engineering in Irongrove, Ponsilius IV, the gnome engineer who knew his way around several mechanizations of clockwork. After a meeting of the minds of those of the most powerful within Irongrove, a plan was formulated in order to put into action the finding and rescuing of the young prince. We now join our heroes as Grafford, representing his team and the Beholded Reserve as a whole. At this meeting, begins to leave and head back towards Castle Irongrove to the awaiting Piton and Yzit. Grafford, you find yourself surrounded by many soldiers adorned in the silver and golds and green armors of the Capital Guard of Irongrove, and as you make your way through the halls of their barracks, walking down their stairs, you just see the looks of worried faces across them. Many of them preparing for battle, unsure of what is to come with the knowledge that rests within your mind. You have 2 weeks before the modifications are made on your airship, allowing you to take more passengers in this scouting party. What would you like to do?
I'd like to return to my group post-haste.
You begin to make your way back towards Castle Irongrove. You exit out of the barracks, which is very close to the castle, not within its walls, but nearby, just outside. And as you're walking through, you once again see nothing but guards out and about, swarming the streets in thin lines, almost like ants, swarming to get to their goal. Still searching for as much information as possible from those who had witnessed anything during the time of the young royalty's capture. This thought and this sight bothers you slightly at the treatment of these people and how they are being forced to be kept inside their houses and questioned every moment of the day. Shrug it off and you begin to head back towards the castle, the guards nodding at your smaller stature and moving the glaives, which you could have easily walked underneath. And you begin to make your way through the portcullis. You make your way inside and wander eventually back to the room in which all of you are currently convening, that being the room of the young prince. Eventually you make your way back inside. Yizit and Patan, what have you been up to?
Reading.
What is in this room? And how big is it?
There is the most... It's actually a very large room. It's about a 6 by 10. It's very big. And the thing that is of most notable importance is Raldir's thunder cannon propped up in the corner behind the door. It's been sitting there, untouched, undisturbed. Other things of note in the room is a large window off to the left of the bed, should you be laying down in it at the head of it, as well as several bookshelves scattered along the sort of corners of the room. A large fireplace with a sort of almost gold-plated wood mantle, and a large picture, an oil painting of Raldir hanging above it.
I guess Yizit's just gonna go poke through the books.
Go ahead and make an investigation check. What book are you reading, Patan?
What kind of books were there?
There's an assortment of books along the bookshelves, many different colors. Go ahead and both of you make an... Actually, you make a perception check. And then give me your totals individually.
Both of us make a perception check?
No. Yizit is making an investigation. Patan, make a perception.
18.
You begin to look and dig through, knocking many of the books aside as you're very focused on your task, littering the ground with both books slightly carved into by your large claws, or just knocked aside and left open, some of the pages being crinkled or rustled in this look about. And you do find one book. It appears to be some sort of step-by-step guide. And the perception check total was?
6.
There are a lot of different colored books. Greens, blues, reds, yellows, browns. There's one that catches your eye, and it's a very stark gray color, and you pull it out, and it's just a history book. And you take about 20 minutes or so just looking through the different books. Most of them seem to be about history or many novels. Mostly fantasy, actually.
I've hauled my book to the window, and I'm reading it in the sunlight.
It seems to be some sort of guide into how to semi-understand the language. It attempts to teach the reader to learn common, to learn to speak that language from common.
It's useless. I throw it away.
And with a sort of backwards reading interpretation, trying to read it in its reverse order of what it was meant to be read in, you kind of just chuck it over your shoulder and it lands on its own. And in that moment, as it lands and crashes onto the floor, Grafford, you have just jumped up and grabbed the door handle and pulled it down and pushed the door open. And you see just a littered mess of books completely thrown across the ground, open to different places, just an absolute mess, some of them with claw marks, and Yizit looking out the window.
Nowhere near the mess.
So I'm gonna open the door and say, I told them as much as I... Pitan,
Huh?
would you kindly assist me in putting all of these...
Patan is surrounded by all of the fallen books, as she is precariously looking at each of them and then kind of looking at the title on the binding and then putting it back. But Yizit is actually about 10 feet or so away from the mess.
Oh. Well, I'm gonna ask, did you do all this?
I didn't even notice it till now. I'll help you clean.
Thank you.
Actually, hearing Grafford, Yizit's going to spin around and go grab the book and hold it out to him.
All right, so
What does it say?
he picks up a green binding of a book with a sort of red, thin-tailed bookmark inside of it. On the cover, he kind of just closes it up and holds the cover out to you. He's holding it upside down, but you can still make out what it says. It says, Draconic for Dummies.
You want me to read this?
I'd like to very gently boop him in the chest with it.
Boop.
My internal cavities burst forth. I die.
Make a strength check.
Oh god, really?
No.
I'll take it and flip it around and open to where the bookmark was.
Whoever was reading this last left it open to a page about learning curse words in Draconic. Words of aggression.
That is unsavory.
It's kind of like I guess the best comparison that I can make is like an English to Spanish dictionary with like word to word. That's sort of what it's like, but from Common to Draconic.
I guess I'll read through this, but for now, let me help Pitan clean that up a bit.
As soon as he says that, I'm going to clean a little too enthusiastically.
Okay, make a dexterity check for me.
He's gonna tear him.
This is going to go well.
Yeah.
I'm scared.
It's all about the delicacy of which our friend here can handle these.
5.
And as you begin to reach down and grab towards the first book in your enthusiasm, your claw goes right through it, all the way through, creating a huge hole in it. And you pull it off, and it gets caught in your other claws, and you pull that one off, and it just begins until you shred this book to pieces. And then you look up at the rest of the group.
I'd like to lean down, scoop up the shreds, and put them on the shelf.
And you do so.
Oh, what a wasteful book.
Agreed. Don't bother with the books, use it. I'll clean them up. There's no threat of me ripping them to... Never mind.
So, the both of you take about 30 minutes or so to clean up this mess. Grafford getting the bottom 3 shelves and Patan the top 4. Until eventually everything is back where it probably was. All the books are on the shelf. Maybe not in the exact order that they were in before. But there's no longer a mess.
Now, about this book. Do you want me to learn this?
Huh. How would I answer this? Twigman say, talk better. This is it talk.
I would like you to make Grafford a straight intelligence check. Just straight. You're pretty smart. You're pretty smart, gnome.
Yeah, I'm decently smart. Oh.
I'm decently smart.
I haven't seen what my roll was because
It's an 8.
An 8. Go ahead. Is it? I have nothing to say anymore.
Oh no, that's all he was going to say.
Oh. And that's that.
That's the only explanation he can really give.
I can't give one. Not with an 8.
you're a decently smart gnome.
Yep.
Not smart enough.
Pitan would like to look over Garrett's shoulder and try to read the book.
You do so, kind of just gazing over the pages.
Can I try to speak the language?
I'm just gonna go ahead and say that it would take about I would say about 4 months of downtime to learn another language.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it takes a long time.
With, like, books to help you learn, otherwise it would be half a year. Just because I'm mean like that.
I see.
I'll go ahead and hold on to the book for now. Because Yizit seems to find some importance to it, but I'm not sure what.
Okay.
Yizit's just gonna kind of huff to himself, just that, and then he's gonna look and point behind Grafford to the thunder cannon.
The thunder cannon is leaning against the corner, so the door opens inwards, and it's been concealed by the door. And you go back to close the door, and as you do so, and you gaze in the direction that Yizit is pointing, you see the thunder cannon, which is almost about your size, actually. Sitting there, pristine, seemingly untouched. You know that it's Raldir's. It's the only of its kind.
Why the hell is this thing still here? If they get their hands on this, that'll be it.
We should bring it with us. Maybe we could. It would help Raldir in case he engages in battle.
Yizit, break. Nobody use.
Yes, that's
Now,
not a good idea.
Let's not be hasty. If anything, we should tell the guards to put it in some sort of maximum security.
And with that, there's a knock on the door.
Come in.
Oh.
Another knock.
Catan will gladly open the door.
You open the door, and it's Twig.
I'm going away. Hi, Twig.
Hello? I just wanted to come and give an update on how the amulet was coming. I was talking with Poncilius after the meeting, and he said that it would be ready sooner than expected, about 4 days. Kind of looking in the direction of everybody.
Thank you.
Alright, we've got a bigger problem than that right now. I'm gonna reach over and try and, like, pull the thunder cannon.
What is that? I've never seen anything like it.
This is the weapon I told everyone about during that meeting. The one that could tear holes in armor. This was the young prince's. You need to put this in some storage that no one could ever find.
His gaze is just fixated on it, and you can tell that everything you're saying is just in one ear out the other.
And from the background, it's just like, or break.
Let's just let him stare at it for a moment.
I'm just gonna clap in front of Twig's face.
Ah! Yes?
We need to put this in some sort of storage. If we don't and the enemy gets their hands on it, we'll never win.
Well, if I may say something that I've been thinking about, sort of just taking a twig out of his hair, and another one just immediately takes its place, like popping out of his hair. And begins to fiddle with it between his fingers. And then I would like to see the power of this weapon firsthand, if possible.
I wouldn't suggest that.
Is he getting like a Gollum-y look to him?
No, he's fiddling with this twig between his fingers, and you actually begin to see almost these green tendrils of magic beginning to swirl around the twig.
Okay. Yizit's gonna step up and just put a hand on his shoulder, kind of aggressively, and lean down into his face.
Yizit,
I'm gonna
back
try.
off.
Catan is gonna try and split them away.
Would I know how to use this thing after seeing Raldir use it?
You don't have proficiency, so you would just make an attack.
To use the thing?
Yeah. You don't really know how it works, but you've seen Raldir use it enough that you're just like, oh, well, there's a trigger, and when he pulls it, it goes boom. Not quite sure how to aim it, or how to reload it, but there's probably a shot loaded.
Is there any sort of targets around?
So as you put your hand on Twig's shoulder, he drops the twig that he was holding between his fingers, and the magic dissipates. Yes, I was just about to get to that, actually. And he reaches down and grabs it again and begins to cast the same spell, and he casts Conjure Woodland Creature, I believe it's called. I don't think it's Woodland Creature.
You gonna shoot that thing at a rabbit?
No. I'm not quite sure of the spell title, but I know he can do it.
Let's just mention quickly that we were inside the building.
Exactly. And he's going to kind of twirl his fingers around this twig, and green energy is going to spark and fly off of it, and he's just going to throw it into the sort of large exposed area in front of the fireplace. And you watch the kind of, as it flies midair, it begins to grow very, very quickly, almost into a full tree, as if from seed to adult life. It lands, and almost flipping and turning in air, you watch as it turns into about a 4-foot tall treant. Pretty stocky, almost about the size of a dwarf, actually.
Did you say this place was 10 by 60 or 10 by 6?
Yes, 10 by 6. So.
Oh, that's a closet.
No.
Yeah.
Bigger than like the larger version of that.
Oh, you mean?
I'm talking like tiles.
Like, oh, okay.
So that times 5.
Oh,
so 30 by 50.
Yeah.
That's. Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
that had me
huge.
Confused a little.
When I'm thinking about measurements, I think in like battle map sizes. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
This many tile.
Yeah, it's like 5 tiles by 10 tiles, and that's how big it is. So this almost dwarf-like treant just grows from that tiny little twig that was in his hair.
All right. Well, I don't want to cause any, alarm. So you might want to warn them. This thing is loud.
Oh yes, you did say something about that during the meeting, and I've brought something to sort of test, and if I sort of assumed that there would be if there really was a thing like you were talking about, there would be something like it, or something that it is, like the one you're holding in your hands, in the young prince's workshop, and we could see maybe some type of schematic or something that we could get an idea. And the best case scenario, there's one here. So you did say that it was loud, so I'm gonna. And he reaches into his robes,
silence the room.
and he pulls out a tiny little grayish bead and smashes it against the ground, and he casts the silence spell.
Alright, I'm gonna take aim at this thing as best as I can and brace myself to get thrown back.
Just straight roll a d20. Just straight roll a d20.
I would like... Wait, can Patan try to tap his shoulder before he does this?
Everybody kind of cleared a good distance away, because recoil and splash.
I know, but that's why I'm scared. I don't want him to fly back and hurt himself.
It's too late. It's too late. Okay. Roll the d20. Don't you ruin this for me.
19.
Oh my
19. So, you kind of remember the way that Raldir would hold it, and you hold it sort of similarly in the same way. It's not as heavy as you thought it was, but it's still kind of cumbersome to get your hands around and kind of work. But eventually you feel a switch just about where the thumb rests, and you flip it, and you watch as the globe in the back, this sort of bluish globe, begins to crackle with arcs of lightning dancing around it inside under its glass exterior, and you hear a soft, almost like whirring sound, just until
I don't hear anything.
well, you feel it. It's vibrating, and you see it. And then you pull the trigger, and you go flying back. You go flying back, and you slam against the door. But the shot lands, and it impacts about 8 or so small little beads of metal with lightning dancing across them, chaining against one another, and they land square in the chest of this dwarf-like treant. And you watch as it almost catches fire, but then the magic of the shot sort of fades away, and it falls backwards and is gone in one shot. Even the minimum damage would have been enough. Now let me just check something on the duration of the silence spell, because this is not of his casting.
Oh no!
And it's not... Yeah.
It's silenced for an hour.
Just a nice, awkward hour silence. That'd be great.
Charades, let's go.
Can't hear the guesses. As I flip through the pages of the good old bookaroo. Apologies, I don't have this memorized. Up to 10 minutes. So, 10 minutes of silence pass. Twig walks up to the body of the, in this time, walks up to the body of the treant, places a hand upon it until it shrinks back down into a tiny little twig, and then he kind of just puts it in a random spot in his hair. And it almost looks as if his hair kind of just absorbs it. It doesn't move his hair as it's being passed into.
He's got that anime fro.
He's a bit scruffy. It's almost like a bush on his head.
I would like to investigate for birds.
Make...
I was kidding.
Make a stealth check followed by investigation?
Oh god, do I have to?
I mean, hey, this is D&D. You can do what you want.
I don't want to. I am standing right next to him, so I'll just kind of lean a little bit and look.
Make a sleight of hand. Just to kind of stealthily, almost like part the hair a little bit and then close it, and then try and make sure.
20.
Can anybody else get confirmation on that?
Yeah, it's a nat 20.
Okay, so nobody sees you do this. Nobody. You kind of lean over, kind of with a, and with your tail, you very stealthily part his hair a little bit, and you see a nest with 2 little eggs in it. And then a brownish sparrow looks up at you after like hopping from twig to twig within Twig's hair. It's still silenced, so you see it like opening its beak, but no sound is coming out until eventually you just stop looking, so you don't get caught.
Okay. I wasn't gonna eat him. I was just curious.
Natural 20. And then his hair just goes back to the way it was, concealing the secret family of birds.
Yizit is just dumbfounded by this.
Yeah.
How much damage did I take from, like, getting blasted back?
Like 2 points of bludgeoning damage.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, not that much. It was more for comedic effect.
I was hoping it, like, knocked me out to show how powerful this thing was.
Eventually, the 10 minutes pass. And the silence wears off. And Twig is sort of just sitting there. Still in silence, not saying anything.
Yizid is looking at him with like this mixture of respect and awe.
Well, that was the demonstration you wanted. They don't seem to have this advanced of a weapon. They seem to have some sort of poorly designed, maybe a prototype. But it's dangerous nonetheless.
He looks down at the ground and then slightly up at you. Were either of you shot by the other one?
I'm gonna look at Baton because I think she was shot.
I think one of you were shot.
Baton
I was
shot.
burned to knockout.
Yeah.
Baton was shot. But did she know she was shot?
Yeah.
Oh.
It was loud.
You've still got bullet wounds.
Okay. I was shot when you were unconscious in that hallway when we were trying to save the young princess.
Oh boy, that was bad.
That.
I got the gist of it though. Twergeth hops down off of the sort of chest at the foot of the bed, and walks over towards Patan, and then sort of just begins to like circle around you, kind of just looking over you, trying to find where you got shot from.
The bullet wounds are on Patan's arm, sort of, right?
No, it's more like the spread of the shot, because of the distance, was kind of like left shoulder down to like about left hip, all along that side. And some of them slightly in the abdomen, actually.
You got shot from behind, that's right.
She got shot from the left.
Yeah, that's why I asked about the arm.
And you're kind of like... the clothes that you guys are wearing are either scorched and burned up or have holes and tears in them.
So wait, can you not like see it?
No, he's just looking around, trying to find any sort of indication. Very, very quietly.
Alright, well, Patan's just gonna take her cloak off, and she's gonna try and lift her sleeve up to where the wounds are.
Oh dear. That's really bad. And he reaches his hand, and his whole hand disappears about wrist deep. And he pulls out a twig, and then he holds it up to his ear, and he looks at one of the embedded balls of metal. Yes? Yes? Oh, that's not good. Oh, that's not good. That's not good. That's not good. That's not good. So, what? The woodland spirit of that tree that you shot, looking over towards Grafford, has told me that that's almost exactly what it looks like and feels like. So, the design and make of these other ones aren't too far from the original, which is troubling.
It is. The young prince had told us that his blueprint had gone missing.
That
so it's safe to
is
assume.
not very good.
That's why we came here in the first place, to recover the blueprint and burn it so no one else
La
can
la
look
la,
at it.
I'm not supposed to hear this, I don't think. No, no. I don't want to get involved in anything with what you are doing. It's best if I am just left out of that. All I care about is getting the young prince back. If you had any other reason to come other than bringing the young prince back, just in case something were to happen 2 weeks from now when we leave, and perchance I would get captured, or any of us would get captured, any information that they could get out of us would probably be left unknown. Nervously looking around the room.
We won't let that happen to you, Twig. We are trying our best to make sure everyone comes out of this safe. Now, you might want to go report this new information to your father.
He looks down when you say that. Then back up
And
and
Mr.
wordlessly.
Bronzetree.
That's not his last name.
Well, no, it's the guard captain.
Oh yes. In the middle of your sentence, wordlessly, turns around. Excuse me. Opens the door, closes it behind him.
Actually, as he's going, Yizit will kind of step out and tap him on the shoulder very gently.
You watch as you're like following him out of the door, a bird flits around the corner. He's not there anymore.
Are there guards?
None within sight that you can see. Down either sides of the hall. Actually, down the one side of the hall because you guys are up in one of the 3 spires.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so going down to the way the stairwell is at, you don't see any guards in that hall area.
Yizit will walk back to Grafford and kind of hunch down next to him. And is Grafford still holding the book, or is it in the room? Or
I'm pretty sure
I've got it. Got it with me.
Okay. He'll kind of hold his hand out and say, book.
Which I'll hand to him.
And he's going to look through it until he finds the... Hold on, I'll DM it to you.
Okay.
Oh my god, he's gonna construct a sentence.
This is great.
Unheard of.
He's looking for those.
Okay.
And since I don't...
Construct the
I don't
sentence,
speak
and I will create the Yizit speak version.
Okay. So just say the sentence normally,
Yes.
as he would speaking that language?
Yes. As if he were... Yeah, go for it.
I need to find a metal worker who can take a look at my armor and sword.
Oh gosh. Let's see. Now I know what it feels like.
Yeah, it sucks.
It does suck. Thankfully, we're remedying this problem in 4 days. It comes out somewhere along with the assistance of the book, and finding the words that you need. Comes out like need smith, fix, armor, weapon.
You want me to roll an intel?
No, that's what you get.
No,
Okay.
he's more or less just pointing to things in the book.
Yeah,
Okay, so I'll probably piece that together a bit.
easily. Like,
Yeah. We'll have to see about finding a smith then. It'll fix you up a bit. But we never got our first problem solved here. I'll say, holding up the thunder cannon, like...
It's got a pretty big backpack.
Wait,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah, I mean, it's
you
proportionally
could
sized.
you could easily fit in his bag.
That's awesome!
Yeah, think like a hiking bag. That's what he's got.
So that could easily fit in Yizit bag.
Sort
Or
of.
maybe not easy.
It would poke out a bit.
How much?
About half the barrel.
Half?
Yeah, it's
It just looks like
it's a long rifle type weapon.
it just looks like a tube.
It's
That
Quick,
tube
quick,
will look unnatural.
quick out of game question. Did we end up going with the double barrel? It's single barrel.
It was single barrel, right? Like
Yes,
rifle?
it was single.
Okay, single barrel. Thank you. Yeah, it would just look like a tube, a golden tube with like a little nick at the end of it.
Okay, so
I play Emery on Draenora. Anyway. In my butt chin. Anyway.
okay, I'm gonna hand the gun to Yizit and tell him to put it in. If you don't mind, put this in your bag. And I'm gonna look toward. I'm gonna give it to him and look towards the bookshelf and see if there are any like scattered pages.
Of?
The books that Yizit tried to get.
No,
Actually-
he shoved all the scraps onto the shelves.
It's going to, as Graffert hands him the gun, he's going to look at it and kind of look at his bag. He's going to walk over to the bed and roll it in a blanket and then stick it in there.
That was perfect. You see, my entire plan there was I was gonna get some papers and make it look like a map that was wrapped up.
Now it just looks like a bedroll.
Make a survival check.
My pleasure.
Just sort of camouflage this thing.
$17.
Oh yeah, easily enough. You make it look like a bedroll, and you dig through drawers trying to find something, and eventually you do. You find a cork with a bottle, and you pull out the cork with your one of your claws, and put it at the end. It fits snugly at the end of the thunder cannon's barrel, and it looks like a bedroll with a little wooden handle.
And then I'm going to stuff that down inside the backpack.
Yep, and it kind of leans. It's a top latch backpack with the majority of it just hanging down. You hear a lot of as he passes through the many chunks of meat that are stored in this bag.
No, those are all on the hip pouch.
No, some of the larger ones had to be stored in
yeah.
the big one.
That's right. How much weight should I add for that?
It's not too heavy. It's very lightweight material. I would say about 10 pounds.
Oh, okay.
It's very light.
Well, that's perfect then. Let's see about getting you to a smith then. Come on, it's on.
So everybody's leaving the room then?
Yep.
Alrighty then.
I'd rather not leave anyone behind.
So you make your way out, and you begin to wander the streets. You don't know where to go.
Well, I was gonna ask a guard.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why I was looking for guards. We're going to
Mhm.
accost someone.
Yep, so you make your way out. The first guard you come against is some of the ones stationed inside the castle. Like, you make your way to the bottom of the spiral staircase that leads up to the bulbous bit of the tower at the top, with the rooms and the young prince's room, and you make your way down. What's the marching order, out of curiosity?
I'm assuming that I'm carrying Grafford.
Yes,
again.
they use it Grafford's stack,
Okay.
and
Baton
then
shall
Baton
take
on
the
the
lead.
side.
Honestly, it's just because he can't keep up. Because his little short legs.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
Anywhoozin. So you make your way down, and those are the first two guards standing at either side of the entryway of this staircase.
Excuse me. Are we close enough?
Yeah.
Okay. Excuse me. Do you happen to know of a smith in this town, and could you direct us?
Well, there's a couple of them. There's the one that makes the armor and weapons for the army. And then there's the one that lives in the town outside the castle, who makes little knickknacks and locks and jewelry and whatnot. But I guess he's technically a smith. It's about what you need, I guess.
Preferably the one that crafts weapons and armor.
Well, he's not in Arngrove. He's somewhere else. Oh, just to say that all of the armor and weapons come in from outside the kingdom and get added to our stockpile.
Yizit is looking through the book for the term knickknack.
Flipping through the pages. That totally wasn't the sound of a bird, I swear.
That's exactly what that was.
No, it wasn't.
Oh,
I don't have like a book to like make the sound.
Jeffrey's with me, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Jeffrey is basically attached to you at all times.
Jeffrey's basically armor, right?
Yeah.
No.
He's a neck pillow a lot of the time.
Yeah, I'm just gonna pet his little head.
Okay. You don't find the term knick-knack. There's no direct translation in this book.
I didn't think there would be.
Ow.
Instead, he'll look at the word repair and show it to Grafford.
Is there anyone in this town that could possibly repair armors and weaponry instead of create it?
Well, there's the one that fixes locks and jewelry. He's got a forge and a smithy, but he doesn't really make weapons. Not really a need for it when we got ours coming in from out of town. So, he might be able to help you out. You just have to explain the situation to him and tell him who you are, and he'll probably do it and help you out if he can.
And you said he's outside of Iron Grove?
No, that's the one that makes all the weapons for the soldiers in the army. The other one lives out in the common district. Get out of the castle and go to the portcullis, and then take a right and go along the edge of the wall, and then on your second left, go left and then take a right, and it looks like a little rundown shack with a bit of a forge outside. That's the one.
Thank you very much. We'll be on our way. Woo-hoo.
Stomp, 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 as he makes his way go away.
Actually, as we're leaving, Yizit will reach in his belt pouch and hand 2 of his Iron Grove coins to the guard.
He had his hand extended out anyway, so he happily accept them and kind of gives you a head nod. Have a nice day.
If you don't tip your guard driver, you're not a cool kid.
You better calm down, is it? Anyway.
Talk about an all-out snack.
All.
So you begin to make your way, following the directions of this guard, until eventually you walk past the streams of soldiers making their way in and out. though not as many in this sort of more rundownish area that you had gone through before, once before. And eventually you find what looks like a rundown shack. It looks almost as if it was a large tree stump before, actually, with a little bit of a almost padded together clay furnace with a rudimentary looking rusted anvil outside. Who doth approacheth the door?
Yizit would like to use the book again to very slowly spell out to Grafford, talk for me. How to put this? Need repairs.
Easily done. It takes a little bit longer since you're kind of working the book backwards to what it was meant to work as, but the basic message gets across pretty easily. So, are you going to walk up with Grafford on your shoulder, or is Grafford going to go down on his own?
About 10 feet away, I'll put him on the ground.
All right.
Thank you, is it? And I'll walk in.
Well, it's a tree stump. There's a door.
Oh. Oh no. Grafford's one enemy.
It's time for the hop of shame. Come on.
I mean, if I jumped on a pretty tall guy's face from ground floor, this should be too
Yeah,
easy.
you're like a little gremlin. It's freaky.
Show you mouth. Alright, so I'll go ahead and hop for that doorknob.
And you grab it, and you open the door without knocking, and you see a man huddled over, grasping what looks like a piece of bread from a table, has it half stuffed in his mouth, and looks over his shoulder over at all of you. And he is a very, very, very old elf.
I would like to roll to knock.
Roll to knock.
You roll to knock, and it succeeds as the door is now. You approach and you hear, and then Yizit comes up, and then extends a hand out, like to go in.
Well, then I'll enter. Sorry for the rude intrusion.
It's a very, very small room. There is a small wooden desk that looks like it was carved out of the stump. Actually, upon closer inspection, this whole room seems to be carved out of wood, including the bed and everything. Everything is one sort of unit, almost as if it was slowly whittled away. And on this desk, you see an assortment of ridiculous and crazy-looking tools. Some of them, you recognize them as smith's tools, and a bunch of other odd ones. You recognize one of them as a part of a jeweler's set, and few scattering around, almost like a hodgepodge of many different sets of equipment that you have had experience with or have seen within your time at the Beholded Reserve, kind of just mixed together to accomplish different tasks. And this figure, it's not usual that you see wrinkles or any signs of old age on an elf, but this one does. Very rugged looking features. The long pointed ears of the rest of the elven people of Irongrove usually extend out about another 1.5 inches or so, but this one's ears do not.
So
What?
they're like Spock ears? Just kind of pointy?
They're pointed, but they do not stretch out as much as an elf. This you
Got it.
notice immediately. You actually begin to see what looks like a bit of peach fuzz, which is another odd thing about
It's a half
elves.
Yeah.
The figure turns completely around, reaches for a water skin that is draped across the bed sheets, and swigs it across his mouth, finishes chewing. And just as you go out to speak, he puts a hand up with a finger, continues chewing.
Archer.
What do you need?
What are you buying?
A friend of mine out there needs his armor and his weapon repaired. One of the guards near the castle recommended we go towards you, since where they get all their other weapons and armor is out of town. Iron Grove.
So what I'm hearing is that I'm the second choice. Whatever you need done, just make it apparent. I don't play games. I don't like wasting time.
Is it's looking in through the door? Just, he likes this guy.
Yizit, would you come in? Please?
I'll clomp my way in.
Your head
I
hits
assume I
the
have
ceiling.
To duck.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say I have to duck to get in, and then I probably can't stand up straight inside.
You cannot. You are very hunched over your large, imposing figure in this rather somewhat small room. He looks you up and down, looks at all the scrapes and dents and almost punctured holes in the armor.
I'd like to draw the greatsword, hold it by the blade, and extend the hilt to him.
Your greatsword is very heavy.
It's
made for your size. It's very heavy. Comparatively to other swords, it's very thick metal, so it can carry the force of the swing. And he grabs onto it and holds it with one hand. You expect him to almost drop it, but he holds it level. And the front of the blade actually tilts forward. And he just stabs it in the ground, and it sort of goes in between the wood with a very satisfying sort of slashing sound. Just like, is there anything else?
I'd like to gesture to the chainmail. That is, I'm assuming from all the fighting we've done, because I haven't done armor maintenance.
Oh, it's awful.
Yeah, it's got tears and everything.
Large gashes in the chainmail, as well as looking over just both of your other members of your party. There's large gashes and tears. A majority of the damage to your clothing came from the airship crash and getting all roughed and scuffed up during that time. So there's large gashes and holes from falling between branches and twigs. Just sorry. And he takes another look up and down, turns around, and sits back down on the chair. Just leave everything. It'll be taken care of. I need names.
Yes, it's going to hold the book and point to the words for me or I.
Yaktashirok Lokotstvie. He's speaking Draconic.
Oh. Yes, it's going to turn to him at this and say, I would like to stay to oversee the repairs of my equipment, and also to learn from someone with such experience.
It will take 3 days.
I have time to spare.
Then you are more than welcome, warrior. This
At
conversation happening in Draconic, obviously.
I start unbuckling the chainmail and just throw it over a chair.
As you do so, Grafford, you're watching this incredible fluid conversation between these two people in a language that you just don't understand.
I hand the book back to Grafford.
I'm gonna assume it's draconic.
Easy enough to make that connection.
And I'm gonna look at the book and think, maybe I should learn this.
Dig, 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 dig.
Grafford's got a new side quest.
So as you begin to watch the several buckles of leather holding together the pieces of chainmail, it's all that Yizit wears. He doesn't wear clothing underneath it. And as he begins to remove his armor, you just see long scars that you can't quite tell what they came from, weapon or beast, just scattered across the chest, shoulders, and arms. All across Yizit's body.
Well, I assume you might have gotten his name. I am Grafford. And that over there is Baton, probably outside. Well, I'll be taking my leave.
Yizit, instead of following, assumes his tripod stance.
Silently continues to eat his meal that he was so rudely interrupted in eating.
Actually, out of the belt pouches, I'd like to pull a big piece of salted beef. Or a ration.
Alright.
Slap it on the table.
He looks at it. Continues eating. The door closes behind you, Grafford, as you watch and wait for Yizit. He doesn't come. And it sort of stays open for a bit, but then this humanoid man, elf, whatever he is, extends a hand up, and these almost intertwining grayish markings along his hands kind of glow faintly with a soft white light, and then the door closes on its own.
Well, I was gonna say, I'm sorry. If he didn't come out, I was just gonna close it and assume he wanted to stay, because, like, Yizit tripoding means something.
Yep, but as you reach for it, he does that, and it closes before you have a chance. You, like, reach out for it, so you buckle down and get ready to jump for it, and then...
I love how you have to say that.
Meanwhile, Patan just standing about 15 feet away. No idea what's going on.
So, how did it go?
It seems Yizit's going to stay there while his armor is getting repaired, so I've also made a mental note to learn this, and I'll hold up the book.
Vaughn is going to try and read it. Or at least one single word in Draconic.
Roll a D100.
You open the book to the bookmark, and the first thing you see is fuck. And in Draconic, it is Rakish.
Do I have to really roll?
No. That's the first word that you see. And that's what you learned. Congratulations.
They're debating whether they're just saying it or not.
For now, I assume we should just head back to the castle. Wait for Yizit to come back. We've got some time before... You know.
Yizit still has
glaring.
the thunder cannon.
Agreed.
I feel like it's safe with him.
Alright.
Maybe I could see if I can get these wounds I have from the thunder cannon. Yeah, healed, I guess.
Well, healing it won't do much. The bullets will stay in, won't they?
Probably.
I'm talking to DM.
So you guys are gonna make your way back towards the castle then, so we can move along?
Yeah.
Okay, for the sake of expediency, we're going to do a little bit of a time skip. We're going to do a 3-day time skip. Actually, a 4-day time skip. Do a little bit of interaction between Yizit and this fellow. Everybody can start marking off a long rest during this time. Both of you get your treatment. The bullets are removed and you're healed up and everything's good.
Clothes fixed.
Clothes get fixed over time. Everything is up to 100%. Everything is great. So, Yizit. As soon as they leave and the door closes, you're sort of tripoding near the door. And about 10 minutes of silence pass. This is not foreign to you. Sitting still and being very quiet. Something that you're quite used to from your past experiences. And as soon as you hear the final "Ooh," the figure stands up and turns around and begins to walk towards the door. The tools that were laid out on a sort of leather binding, he sort of just scoops it up and they all kind of roll into this roll of tools, and grabs the leather straps that's supposed to bind them together and carries them out and kicks the door open, dragging the sword behind him.
I'd like to pick up the chainmail and my assorted bags and walk out behind it.
As you get out there, you watch as he's laid his tools out on a sort of shoddy-looking table outside near the anvil, and as soon as he's done so, stabs the sword into the soft earth, and then walks towards the clay-looking furnace, extends a hand out towards it, and the markings on his arm sort of glow slightly, and then the fire starts inside. He looks at the sword, yanks it out of the ground, and then places it on the anvil after sort of holding it at an extended arm's reach, watching it sort of tip forward as he does so. Silently puts it on the anvil and begins the repairing process. He doesn't look at you at all during this time where he's repairing your sword. Instead, all he says is, "I need water. Now."
Is there a barrel, a bucket?
That's all he says. Go ahead and make a perception check as you look around the nearby area.
Natural 20.
You look around and there are actually several barrels around the back side of the house that are full of rainwater.
I'll start lugging those. I'll bring...
There's about 4
3.
in total, yeah.
I'll
So
bring 3.
You bring 3 of them, and after you've disappeared behind the other side of the house and then lugged all 3 of them over, dragging 2 of them with one hand and then scooping up the other one, your great strength, an easy task. It takes about 5 minutes or so to pull them all the way without spilling anything. And as you do so, as you turn around the corner, you see that your blade has almost completely melted. Was where it once was a just dull grayish metal is now almost a liquid white. Only the hilt at the end of the anvil stays until he pulls away the hilt and lets the molten metal almost sink into what was not originally there, a groove in the anvil. And he reaches towards the table and grabs at one of his tools and begins to shape and smooth the molten metal. And it's a very meticulous yet beautiful process as you watch the molten metal sort of swoon and move so gracelessly, like ripples of water upon an undisturbed pool. It's captivating.
I'm going to assume this is some of that magic stuff. And instead of intruding, I'm going to hang up the chainmail. I'm assuming there's like an overhead...
yes, there's...
all that.
Yeah, there's one of those.
Okay. I'm going to hang the chainmail from that and start removing the broken or damaged links. And just kind of throwing them into a bucket.
Go ahead and make a straight dexterity roll.
$12.
Easily enough. You're very, very familiar with this armor. You've had it for a very, very long time. You begin to very carefully and quite skillfully begin to move away the links that are broken or damaged in any way, and then dropping them into one of the nearby barrels of water that you'd brought along, allowing them to sort of gather at the bottom. And as this process goes on, it takes the better part of the day until eventually the figure speaks once again. Water, now.
Gonna go out back and get some more.
Well, he's sort of just asking you for to drag one of them a little bit closer, so you do so, and you grab the barrel and bring it closer to the anvil. And then he reaches down to the solidified, not completely, almost gelatinous-like molten metal, and with his bare hand reaches down and grabs this almost sword-shaped rod, and then just plunges it into the water for about 2 seconds, and then pulls it back up, and it's almost a crispy, sort of sleek black, with cracks and heat all around, and then reaches and grabs a small mallet with a pointed end, and begins to what almost looks like create serrations along the side, chipping away and folding the metal, and then going with the other end of it that is flat and slamming it against it, sending sparks of white, hot metal going out, completely unbothered. As you watch this process, you see several burn marks going up and down his forearms, which weren't quite visible in the low light of the room that you were in before. As you continue to watch this process, you're mystified for a moment, until eventually he reheats, shoves it into the furnace, lets it get a little more molten again, and then lets it rest upon the anvil, and then looks directly at you for the first time. Are there any altercations that you wish to be made upon this weapon?
Only those that would allow me to kill the kidnappers of the prince more efficiently. I leave it to your professional judgment.
You, lizard men, who speak the tongue of dragons. You are not from this continent, are you?
I am not from this world, so no. One might say that.
He grabs it again and begins to create serrations in it once again. Repeats the process. An hour of silence passes. He leaves. After repeating the process about 4 or 5 more times, he leaves the molten metal upon the anvil within its groove and walks back inside and pulls out a few small pouches and takes them over and sets them on the table. Still not looking at you. He reaches into one of the pouches and begins to sprinkle a sort of grayish, almost ash-like dust over the top of it, and then flips it around and then does it on the other side as well, completely coating and speckling this metal. Plunges it once again, repeats the process, speckling it with powder from the second, sort of fine, almost sand-like yellow powder that completely coats it, reheats it, and you begin to hear several very loud and long extended popping sounds, and fire just begins to spurt out from the clay furnace with each small explosion, until eventually it comes out and the details and smoothness of the blade is beginning to take shape once again, and he takes his small, sharpened mallet tool and begins to hammer again once into it. He leaves it alone for a bit and then begins to look over the chainmail. Go ahead.
I was going to say, as he does this, I'm taking the leather straps out of the chainmail and kind of readying it the best way I know how.
The night begins to press on, and the day will pass. He walks inside and closes the door behind him, leaving everything out as it was. What do you do?
I'll just look over the chainmail again to make sure I didn't miss anything for about an hour. Then I'll curl up next to the forge.
A day passes, and the next one comes early in the morning, before the sun crests the large trees of the canopy, and darkness still envelops the outskirts of Irongrove Castle. The figure once again emerges from his shack, and the sound of this awakens you, always being alert. Overnight, the metal has cooled and formed a very darkened, almost blackened blade. A very smooth and fine detail to it, with a very long serrated edge on both sides, almost like the jaws of a dragon, and its teeth extending out on either side. The small hook-like blades extending outwards from the left and right. He takes the hilt which he has kept with him and begins to heat the bottom of it and attaches the hilt to this blade and stabs it into the ground. He then begins to work on the chainmail, repeating the same process and creating metal links from several ingots of iron that have been left around and scattered about. The same process ensues, using the water that you've brought to him. I would like you to make an intelligence check.
Okay. Ten.
You're not quite sure about all of the parts of the process of which he is going about, though it does seem rather unique to what you have experienced in the past. You've never quite seen anyone lift molten metal with their bare hands before, or work so elegantly almost with these tools. A better part of the day passes, until about midday, the sun shining brightly in the center of the sky, in the ring that forms the canopy of the large trees surrounding Irongrove. Before he speaks once again. What is your name?
Yizit is what they call me, after my father.
You say that you are not of this world. What world do you hail from, warrior?
A place far away. And I was brought here by powers that I cannot comprehend.
Lizard man who speaks the tongue of dragons, named of Yizit. This blade. He holds it up. This is now named Dragon's Maw. And it is yours. And he stabs it into the ground at your feet.
Before I reach a hand for it, I'd like to reach into a belt pouch and pull out, it's a very small, it's about 5-6 inches long. It's the skull of what looks like an alligator, but it's been surrounded by beads and pieces of metal on a leather thong. And I'd like to extend it to him and say,
This was my broodmate. My first kill. I offer its honor to you, Smith.
He looks it over and begins to run his hands over the bone. He doesn't take it from you. He doesn't say anything. Instead, he begins to go back to work.
I'll hang it on the side of the stump nearest the forge.
You put it there, and the rest of the day passes. Over the course of the day, he has been hard at work, silently, creating more and more chain links, forging them with small, almost rounded tools, creating the small linkage to repair the armor, the chest plate, of chain mail, rather, is repaired over the course of the day. It's only been 2, yet he said that there would be 3 required, and at the end of the day, he closes the door behind him as he did the day before.
I've never touched the sword, but I'll curl up next to the forge again.
The next day passes. Once again, coming out at the very earliest moments of dawn. You were awakened by this. Go ahead and make a perception check.
Eight.
All right. You don't awaken until late morning. As you begin to rise from the forge, you begin to hear the sounds of scraping almost. Until you awaken and find that The skull that you had once given to him and then placed upon the stump is no longer there. Instead, it is placed upon the forge. It has been banded with iron and turned into a helmet. It almost seems as if in most places where needed reinforcement, iron plates have been placed inside and on top. Though, one thing that you had not noticed before that is now prominently displayed in the center between the two eyes on the sort of bridge of what extends into the nose. On the top of the head, you see what appears to be almost a third eye that is carved into the metal that forms one of the plates. And it's slightly opened, and you can't quite tell what it is. You're not sure. In some places, it has been widened. More metal has been placed to make it larger than it was before. And the beads hang prominently. He grabs the finished helmet, as it only took a few hours to create and alter. And looks at you directly. Kneel.
I do so.
He places the helmet upon your head. It fits a little tightly, but as soon as it's placed upon your head, you feel a strength within you. Nothing magical you would feel rushing through you, but instead, it soothes you. It feels familiar, almost like a voice. Like a very distant song is being sung in your native tongue. Not quite so that you can make out what is being said, but such so that it soothes the most inner part of your being. He doesn't say anything else. And he continues to work. He takes the chain shirt once again and begins to meticulously look over it and fixing any errors or any places that were missed, and that begins to take a later part of the day. What do you do?
I assist him in whatever way I can, without speaking.
As he takes out any of the chain links that you had missed, he drops them off to the side, and you take note, mentally looking at what you had missed. And as time goes on, he just begins to point in different directions. You hand him different tools and watch and take note of what tools are being used for what, how long certain parts of metal are being heated for. You're not quite sure at what temperature or what consistency or what the makeup of the metal is. You're not sure about all the fine details, but you begin to get the simple basics of what is going on. The process and the artistry that is used to shape the tools, shaped using the tools for each of the chain links, and how they're being applied as they are still slightly cooling and malleable and placed in. Over the better part of the day, it is finished. And as he holds it up, it glistens and gleams in the afternoon twilight. And as you look and gaze upon the chainmail, you move it to the side and it catches the light. And you can see a small, almost grayed design of the same eye that is only visible in a very specific angle in the light, prominently displayed upon the chest. And he hands it to you.
As I'm strapping it on, I'd like to ask him what the eye symbolizes in this world.
It means nothing. It is but my mark. It has been quite some time since I have made weapons of war. Little does anything take my time, such as the pitiful tasks that the people around bring to me.
Then I am proud to bear your mark into battle, Smith.
And I like to extend an arm in like the warrior's handshake, grasping the forearms.
He reaches out, and with a strength that is not quite apparent on his figure, he grips it. And he reaches for the sword and grabs it and places it into your hand. There is no sheath that can hold the dragon's maw.
Then I will sheath it in the body of our foes.
Leave.
At that, put the great sword across the shoulder and walk back to the castle.
And he walks back inside. And with that, we're going to take our break. We'll see everybody in part 2 of the Isle of Cinder.